Why do we vividly remember some moments in our life, yet completely forget other moments? Try to think back to just last week and go day by day trying to recall what you did over the course of the time you were awake. It's very likely that there's a lot that you're unable to remember. There's large chunks of time that are just sort of a blurry, hazy recollection. Sure, there are probably things that you remember very well, events from that week that stood out because they made you feel a certain way. Maybe you were happy, sad, frustrated, angry, scared, whatever. But there's going to be a lot of moments in that time that you'll realize don't stick around, or at least they don't stick around nearly as vividly as some other things did. Compare your brain to that of a computer. I can pull out a computer that I used in college from a decade ago and pull up a paper I turned in on Russian history, and it'll be exactly like when I wrote it. Whatever I wrote is preserved there until something wipes the memory of that computer. I can pull up something I started typing a few years ago that I saved in the cloud on Google Docs and keep doing the same. It's always going to be around unless something happens to the memory or those servers where that information is stored. Our brains don't do a one-to-one conversion like a computer does. A 2017 Time magazine article stated that there were fewer than 100 people on planet Earth out of the 7.5 billion that existed at the time that had been diagnosed with having a highly superior autobiographical memory. In other words, these were people who can recollect moments almost like a computer does. The vast majority of humans on the planet just can't do that. What our brains do a better job at than technology is in classifying what's important out of the many things we do over hours, days, weeks, months, and decades. One of the things that aids our brain in knowing what is important and what isn't is emotion. Psychology Today has an article that states a normal function of emotion is to enhance memory in order to improve recall of experiences that have importance or relevance for our survival. Emotion acts like a highlighter that emphasizes certain aspects of experiences to make them more memorable. Basically, events in your life that cause extreme emotion, whether they're things that were really great or really terrible, cause our brains to say, all right, I need to remember this. In my class, we'll be reading an example of memoir in book form titled I Am Malala. Those familiar with her story know that times growing up for her were filled with hardship, fear, and danger, and her fight for the right to be educated shows how powerful a memoir can be. When you read her story, you get the emotions she felt directed back at you, the reader. When writing your memoir, it doesn't necessarily have to be about something that changes the world, but it does need to be about something where you can share how you felt with your audience and make them feel a little piece of that too. So let's get a little bit deeper into what a memoir is and what a memoir is not. To start, a memoir is nonfiction. It's a real account from a real person's life. If you pick up a memoir written by someone at the bookstore, everything in there should be true to that person's life, or at least as true as they can remember it. A memoir will be told from the first person point of view, so expect many I, me, and my's as you go through reading a memoir. Here's a couple excerpts from I Am Malala that kind of illustrate that. Starting here. I had grown up hearing the word terrorism, but I never really understood what it meant. Until now. Terrorism is different from war, where soldiers face one another in battle. Terrorism is fear all around you. It is going to sleep at night and not knowing what horrors the next day will bring. It is huddling with your family in the centermost room in your home because you've all decided it's the safest place to be. It is walking down your own street and not knowing whom you can trust. Terrorism is the fear that when your father walks out the door in the morning, he won't come back at night. And another excerpt. One day I was traveling to Shangla with my mother and brothers. We didn't own a car, and one of our cousins was giving us a ride. As the traffic slowed to a crawl, he put in a cassette to pass the time. Suddenly, he ejected his tape. He scrambled to gather up the other cassettes he kept in the glove box. Quick, he said to my mother. Hide these in your handbag. Two men drew near our car. They were wearing black turbans and camouflage vests over their shalwar kameez. They had long hair and beards, and they were carrying Kalashnikov automatic weapons. I was face to face with the Taliban. You get an idea from that writing. You're going to get it from the perspective of that person and the events that are going on at that time. A memoir will focus on a theme that usually revolves around a major change in the author's life. The stories are sometimes inspirational, and they may show someone overcoming something that would be difficult. Themes present in many memoirs include adjusting to a new life or a change in your life, overcoming discrimination and obstacles, loss in your life, recovery from some kind of issue. Coming-of-age events are often topics in memoirs, and the bonds of friendship are also common themes. Overcoming some type of adversity or challenge in life is very likely going to be the focus of a lot of memoirs you read. The key in writing a memoir is that it needs to be over something that matters to you, and in turn will matter to your audience. Stemming from this, a memoir needs to highlight emotion in your story, and it needs to make your audience feel that emotion. You want your audience to sympathize with your story, to see these struggles you outline, and to pull something from what they read that makes them want to overcome challenges themselves. Or maybe it's something more happy that you're writing about, and it makes them want to try new things or experience the joy that you felt. Memoirs can vary dramatically in length. The example that I've been using has been novel size, but many students in school write shorter pieces for memoirs that highlight an event in a much shorter format. We'll get deeper into writing a memoir and what that entails in later discussions. But with these things in mind, you've got a start as to what a memoir is. Now let's look at what memoirs are not. Memoirs are not autobiographies. Autobiographies cover a person's whole life from their point of view, and this is not what you'll be doing in a memoir. A memoir is usually going to focus on a shorter frame of time. Think hours, days, or weeks, rather than decades. Longer form novel-length narratives will usually cover significantly longer periods of time, but are still not telling a whole life story. The focus is on the theme rather than on the life as a whole. Memoirs are very similar to personal narratives, which you may have written before, but they're still different. Personal narratives focus more specifically on the event and just telling the story of what happened in that event. Memoirs go deeper than personal narratives. In a memoir, you're going to see a lot more time for reflection on the events that happened. You're going to see more discussion on the theme and what you overcame. Memoirs allow you to kind of take a step back and discuss, whereas personal narratives don't so much do that. So now we've discussed what a memoir is and what a memoir is not. We've introduced ourselves to the topic of a memoir, and we'll get much deeper as we go throughout this unit. For now, take some time to think about what you would do if you were asked to write a memoir today. What's an event from your life that sticks out in your memory and is something you think you could impart the emotions you felt at that time to an audience in your writing? Thanks for listening. Have a great day.